Welcome back. So what we have so far is when I hit play now, I can run around and I can shoot and I can see the ammo counter as well. And I also have fixed the, looking up and looking down and sprint. And if I sprint and that's already there, crouch, everything is working fine. And also the ammo counter, when I go all the way down to 0, and that doesn't work, right? So the ammo goes when it turns to 0, you cannot shoot anymore. So all of those things work. So next thing that's remaining to be done is shooting down sights. That's the primary, the secondary fire mode for most assault rifles, unless you have something, you have mapped your secondary fire to the grenade launcher of your gun. That's another thing altogether. But mostly in first-person shooters, when you right-click it, the rifle or the edge or the front of the rifle, where you have these iron sights, they move towards your camera, and you can see so that you can aim better. So you can aim at the targets better. So that's the secondary fire, or that's the secondary fire mode on right-click for most first-person shooters. And also for sniper rifles, the scope comes up. So we're gonna try and implement that in this video so that it makes it for a wholesome experience, a wholesome first-person shooter experience. So the way we're gonna make this work is, inside this third-person character, we're gonna add a second camera here. So right now we have one camera which is looking from. So if I go over to the player, so this is one camera which is actually looking over. Okay. I think I just misclicked somewhere. Yeah. So this is one camera that is actually looking over the gun itself, but we're gonna need to add another camera which will then move over when you right click. But the only problem being we don't really know where exactly to place the camera, because right now we don't have any preview skeletal mesh. So let's go ahead and add a preview skeletal mesh, and that would be inside the mesh itself. So inside this mesh, I'm going to add a preview skeletal mesh, and I'll call this skeletal mesh. And let me call this preview, I don't know, skeletal mesh or something, because we're going to take this off later on anyways, right? Okay, and you have to make sure that this is a child of the mesh itself. And also, the parent socket, we have to look for the weapon attach. And if you look at the character itself, if I look at the character, and if I go over to the soldier, and if I double click on the soldier, I'll open up the skeletal structure. If I go to the skeleton, and if I look at the socket that we created, it's called weapon attach. So that's the right one. So we got the right one. So I'm going to close all of this. And now with previous skeleton mesh, I think it's all okay. Previous skeleton mesh. So I'm going to click on that. And now I'm going to get the mesh itself. And that would be the AK-47. And it's right there. And it sits pretty much in place. And that's good enough. And okay, and if I look at this, I think it's exactly where I wanted to sit, and that's all okay. I don't think I'm gonna mess around with, I'm not gonna mess around with the placement of the gun. I think I'm okay with that. So we're gonna settle with this. Okay, so if I compile that and if I save that and if I play the game, you should be able to see two different weapons. It's there, but you can't see it, but it's actually there. So I'll go back to the player, select the previous skeleton mesh, and go over and select hidden in game so that we don't get to see it at all. I don't want to see it. This is just going to be a reference mesh. We're just using this as a reference mesh, which will be gone later on anyways. Okay, and now next step is going to be to add the camera itself. So I'm going to, with the previous skeleton mesh selected, I'm going to click on add component and I'm going to add a new camera, right? And once that gets added, it just gets added in some arbitrary position, and I'm going to call this, I don't know, iron sight camera, and I want to have the parent socket for the camera as the, let's say, I don't know, I don't know, projectile. Okay, so that's fine because that's where the projectile is. That's where the projectile comes out from. You could have named it muzzle as well, but that's okay. That's why the projectile comes out from the muzzle. So now the camera has a pattern socket as projectile. Okay. Okay. So with that projectile or everything selected, I'm going to move the camera over to where the iron side of the gun is. So there it is. And first I'm going to move this to where the iron side is, somewhere like here, and maybe up a bit. Now, of course, this camera is not oriented right. So I'm going to orient it right. I'm going to have to rotate it. Click on that, and I think okay, and I'll just rotate it by like that, 180 degrees. And a better way of doing working out with cameras is that the camera does not really worry about the scale, so you can bring the scale down to somewhere like 0.3 so that it's easier for you to work with. And now you have the camera, and when you hit F, it's going to be right there. Now you just need to bring this down a little bit, and it's better if you don't have the snapping, if you don't have the snapping on. So I'll just click on the camera, and I'll just move this down a bit so that I'm getting this a little closer. I'll just make sure that it's oriented right. No, it's not. So move it here right about the gun, and okay, and select that again and move that back a little bit. So this is somewhere close to the iron sights, and this is the iron sights here. So people normally aim through these sights. So this is iron sight. So if I have to look closer, go back here, F, and okay. Okay, so I think I'm okay with that. Something like this. Now this is too close, but we'll figure that out because we don't really have a great idea about how this thing is going to work. But we have placed the camera, and we know that this is the camera that's going to be used for making the iron sights work. So I think I'm going to stop there. I'm going to hit compile, and let's move on with the other thing. And one more thing we have to do is click on this iron sight camera, go all the way down and uncheck auto activate, because I don't want to see this right away. I only want to see this iron sight camera or through this iron sight camera when the player is pressing the secondary mouse or the right mouse button. Okay, that's all fine.